I just wanted to get along with Emma. The unexpected person who saved me, abandoned by my husband after 15 years of support, was the least likely savior. I am Emily. I'm 40, living with my husband, our daughters aged 14 and 11, and my in laws, making six of us in total. My husband James is 5 years older than me and runs a farm with the in laws. I work in the fields from early morning, help with checking and shipping vegetables until evening, but as a wife, I don't get paid. I also do almost all the housework for six people. James doesn't get much of a salary either, being family, and honestly, our life is not easy. We live in a big country house, and the in laws lecture me, saying, "You're lucky to live in such a large and fine house for free." But there's nothing good about it. It's just a lot of cleaning. Moreover, every weekend, my husband goes out drinking with his friends. Since there are no weekends off in farming, I have to do his work when he's hungover. He spends the little money he earns on alcohol. And if I complain, "Are you saying I don't earn enough?" he snaps back at me. I have often wondered why I even married him, looking down at his snoring face when he's drunk. The reason I didn't divorce him was that I had nowhere else to go. Having lost my parents early, my brother and his wife live in my childhood home. Without a family home to rely on and almost no savings, it seemed impossible for a 40-year-old woman with two daughters to survive. But I had my small pleasures, cooking with the vegetables we grew and the shared ingredients from other farmers and dairies. The ingredients might be irregularly shaped but tasted fine. When I cooked and gave the food as a thank you, everyone was delighted. Thanks to the fresh and tasty ingredients, my children grew up without being picky eaters. My husband and in-laws might criticize my cooking for being bland or poor, but they always finished their plates. The people around us were kind, and I could make and eat fresh, delicious food. My daughters were blessed with friends and enjoyed school. So, despite the worst husband and in-laws, I convinced myself I could live here, supporting my husband for 15 years. Then, one day, something unexpected happened. While working in the fields, a TV crew came to interview us. They were filming a program about visiting farmers' lunchtime, and they approached our house while we were working. My mother-in-law, Olivia, was thrilled, holding the microphone. "Please do! We can't offer much!" And then she whispered to me, "I'm going to put on some makeup, so you start preparing lunch quickly," and went back to the house. Reluctantly, I quickly wiped the sweat off my makeup-free face and prepared the dining table, while my husband James and my father-in-law Robert awkwardly handled the interview. For lunch, given the sudden visit, I couldn't prepare any elaborate TV-worthy dishes. The TV crew told us to keep it as usual, so I added a summer orange pound cake that I had planned to give away. Then Olivia appeared, lips bright red, dressed in her favorite dress. "Oh no, such a country-style table is embarrassing. Usually it's a bit more glamorous," she said. "No, no, this is an ideal lunch with lots of vegetables. Having so many dishes and even a homemade cake for lunch is amazing," responded the TV people. Sure enough, people on TV are good at flattery. Their flattery, though maybe not sincere, made me happy. During the meal, everyone at the table enjoyed the food, saying it was delicious and finishing everything. I was surprised. I thought they'd just taste a bit and leave it at that. Throughout the meal, Olivia continued to give nonsensical explanations about the dishes, none of which she had made. But as they were leaving, the staff thanked me, not Olivia, saying, "It was incredibly delicious." And they thanked me. Half a month after the filming, our meal was broadcast on TV. Of course, our relatives and neighbors were thrilled, and my phone rang off the hook that day. The in-laws and my husband discussed staff's attitude and the edited scenes like they were industry insiders. Local ladies commented, "James looks so handsome. He might become a famous handsome farmer." This only made my husband more arrogant. He started going out more often to brag about his TV appearance, leaving me with all the work. I was truly, truly fed up. Then, 3 months after the TV appearance, my now quite smug husband dropped a bombshell. I've fallen in love with someone else. Let's get divorced. What? Stunned by this unexpected confession, I couldn't think of anything to say. Ignoring my shock, he continued. After the TV broadcast, a girl approached me. She listens to me so intently. I'm drawn to her. I think she's my destiny. So you're having an affair with her? I asked, my voice trembling. He sighed. No, it's not like that. When I said I'd date her, she refused, saying she can't be with a married man. She's so noble. That's why I have to be pure for her. What is that? So cheating is wrong, but it's okay to divorce and date? It's incredibly selfish. While I was still reeling from his one-sided story, Olivia interjected, sounding exasperated. Just get divorced already. What? I've always thought so. A dark, gloomy woman like you doesn't suit a handsome, kind man like James. When I heard he found a 24-year-old girl, I was sure. She's the true wife for our family. 24 years old? Could a girl 20 years younger than my husband really want to marry a low-income, middle-aged man with kids? Are you being fooled? What? My unexpected remark made Olivia widen her eyes in disbelief. Jealousy because you're being dumped is so ugly. I didn't mean it like that. You're a defective product who can't even bear a son. The new wife, you see, is attracted to James's kind heart and will come to our home. And of course, a younger, more obedient wife who can still bear children is better than an older, barren one. Right, Robert? Yeah, that's right. Robert, usually so unnoticeable, nodded with a pleased smile, seemingly happy about the prospect of a younger wife. Shocked by their words, my husband gleefully added, Yeah, you can take the kids too. I want to start afresh with her. How could you? No need for them to go to high school, right? I'll pay child support till middle school. How generous of you, James. Olivia admired with an arrogant air. Sickened by this whole twisted scene, I ran out of what felt like a hellish home. The thought of my husband so easily abandoning our blood-related daughters for a younger wife made me feel nauseous and empty. What were my 15 years for? How are my daughters and I going to live from now on? Overwhelmed with despair, I crouched down. Then I heard, Mom? And saw two shadows approaching. It was my daughters. Both Ava and Isabella looked sternly at me. They must have been told about the divorce. Ava, Isabella, I'm sorry. Because of Mom, it's Dad and them who are wrong. Isabella yelled with tears in her eyes. Mom, let's leave, just like they said, Ava said, patting my back. Dad is so creepy, obsessed with a younger woman, and Grandma is the worst, always saying terrible things to you. I don't want to stay in this horrible home. It's sad to leave our friends in school, but we can always message them. It'll be tough without much money, but Isabella and I will help with cooking, laundry, and other chores. Yeah, 3 girls together can make it work. Ava, Isabella. Tears welled up in my eyes from the encouragement of my daughters. I have to be strong for my gently raised daughters. How can I, their mother, be downhearted? I must become stronger and make sure we find happiness together. I slapped my cheeks and held back my tears. I decided to divorce and immediately contacted my brother and his wife. Hearing my story, they were even angrier than me and told me to come back home. My sister-in-law, in tears, scolded me for not consulting her earlier. I had been hesitant to trouble her since she's not a blood relative, but I regretted causing her worry and felt grateful for her kindness. The next morning, while packing with the kids, I noticed a commotion in the yard. Peeking out the window, I saw a young woman arguing with James and Olivia. Could that be the future wife? As I watched, she noticed me and came towards me with a fierce look. Is it true you're divorcing James? Yes, yes. Her intense gaze made me hesitate. At my affirmation, she clutched her head and screamed. I don't know what he told you, but I don't like him at all. What? I don't like that delusional jerk, one bit. Really? What's going on? I was baffled by the sudden outburst of the woman I thought was the affair partner. Her anguished cries drew my stunned husband James and Olivia rushing over. Wait, Sophia, you watched TV and wanted to meet me, right? You said I was handsome. I never said you were handsome. I wanted to meet your wife, not some old man. I told you so many times. Me? I was taken aback by her unexpected revelation. Actually, I also help out on my family's farm. Seeing how you prepared all those vegetables so diversely, I really thought it was amazing. I genuinely respected Emily. That was all my doing! Olivia blurted out shamelessly. Sophia glared at her. A grandma in heavy makeup, sitting at the dinner table after farm work, couldn't possibly prepare such extravagant dishes. Heavy makeup? Grandma! I couldn't help but burst out laughing at Sophia's brutally honest words, earning a furious glare from Olivia. I was just having drinks with friends at a tavern when I saw James nearby, so I thought I'd try talking to him, hoping to meet Emily. But then he suddenly said, If you like me that much, I could date you. I thought he was joking, so I brushed it off, saying, I can't with a married man. Then he forcefully exchanged contacts, and yesterday he suddenly messaged me saying he'd divorced. So that's what happened. It turns out she was a victim just like me. My husband, who got carried away thinking he was a handsome farmer after appearing on TV, approached a young woman who misunderstood his intentions. How embarrassing. Utterly embarrassing. What? But I thought... My husband, unable to accept that he was misinterpreted, stood there gaping and shifting his eyes. Seeing his pitiful and ridiculous fate, any lingering feelings I had disappeared. I'm sorry for the trouble my husband caused. I apologized, still technically his wife. Sophia quickly bowed her head in response. I'm sorry for my rashness, but I never expected this. It's okay. I wanted to separate anyway. This turned out to be a good opportunity. What? James looked at me in shock. I'm the one who should be saying what. Honestly, I think it's better for you to separate too. What? James looked at Sophia in disbelief. Okay, even if you divorce Emily, there's absolutely no chance of us getting married. Don't contact me again. Goodbye. Wait, Sophia! My husband, James, frantically tried to chase after the swiftly departing Sophia, but he tripped and fell spectacularly. Ava, our eldest, who had been watching the whole time, muttered, That's so embarrassing, and laughed. Ignoring whatever James and the in-laws wanted to say, my daughters and I left the in-laws' house. After staying with my brother and his wife for a while, we rented an apartment in the same town as them. I filed for divorce sooner than expected. The lawyer they recommended was excellent, securing not only my daughter's college fees, but also a substantial alimony due to James's abusive behavior. I was really grateful that the attempted affair, which led to the divorce, didn't hinder us from getting the alimony. Naturally, James and the in-laws, who had lost Sophia, grumbled about the divorce, but the lawyer's firm stance, "We'll see you in court," made them relent and reluctantly sign the papers. Olivia's last words were, James will find a much better wife than a barren one, or that ridiculous young girl. And then my husband said, You'll regret this, as he left with those parting words. Thus, I escaped the hellish in-laws' house and started a new life with my daughters. 5 years later, Oh, is this celery salad a new creation? It looks delicious. Yes, it's our top pick for this summer. I run a deli and sandwich shop in a small country town. After the divorce, I worked for a farmer whose owner admired my cooking skills and encouraged me to open the shop. My vegetable-based dishes are popular among the elderly and picky children, and the media attention has increased recently. Every day feels rewarding, especially when customers come all the way from the city just to eat my sandwiches. My daughters, now in college and high school, help out in the shop on weekends. One day, as I was busy with this fulfilling life, James and my former mother-in-law suddenly appeared at my shop. I was not surprised, anticipating their visit since my media exposure had increased. Emily, you seem to be doing well. James, my ex-husband said in worn clothes, smiling familiarly. I saw you on TV. Proud to have a famous ex-daughter-in-law. Olivia, still in the same red lipstick and dress from 5 years ago, nodded in satisfaction. What nonsensical things are they talking about in the middle of a weekday? You're not my husband anymore. If you're not buying anything, please leave, I said. Don't rush. We've come to take you back, James retorted. What? You've done well alone, but you look so tired on TV. I know you want me to rescue you, he assumed. If you love cooking, you can open a cafe in our old house, but you must work in the fields. Oh, and your daughters are of marriageable age now, right? There's a 40-year-old neighbor looking for a wife. Both James and Olivia continued with their convenient delusions. Even after 5 years, these people haven't changed a bit. Before I could retort, an employee emerged from the back. Wow, look who's here! The delusional jerk. What? Who are you? As my husband turned to glare at the source of the insult, his face froze in shock. Sophia? Why are you here? Yes, wearing the same apron as mine was Sophia, the woman James had once tried to have an affair with. Why? Because Sophia's dad is my employer. What? James and Olivia were dumbfounded by this unexpected revelation. Sophia and I exchanged glances and laughed. After my divorce, I had moved back to my brother's town, and incredibly ran into Sophia at a local supermarket. We hit it off, and I ended up working part-time at her family's farm. My cooking with discarded vegetables gained popularity, leading to the opening of our sandwich shop. Thanks to the goodness of abundance you let go, our business is thriving, I said. Don't be silly, Emily. You're the lucky charm here, Sophia playfully responded. James and Olivia were clearly taken aback. Now was my chance to strike. James, I heard you got scammed in a marriage fraud. Did you get your money back? What? How did you know that? James's face turned pale. Apparently, he had been desperately seeking a young, unmarried, and beautiful wife, failing miserably. A supposed ideal match turned out to be a con artist, swindling a large sum from him. They had approached me, thinking I was unaware and could be a free laborer with money. They thought they could deceive me and take me back, but too bad for them. But I had a spy in the in-laws' house who kept me informed. The eggs in this scramble come from Brown's farm, and these tomatoes in the salad are from Miller's. Brown? Miller? Former mother-in-law was flustered. Yes, Brown, the poultry farmer, and Miller, the tomato grower, were neighbors of my former in-laws. All the local farmers agreed to supply my shop. They also keep me updated about you, you know. I smiled with the brightest smile I never showed in the former in-laws' house. However, seeing my smile, they started trembling like old tractors. No way. Scammed out of a $200,000 in marriage fraud? Don't expect any money from me. I'm remarried. What? If you want to take me back, tell my current husband to prepare $100,000 for a divorce settlement. That's impossible. Realizing they couldn't exploit me anymore, they left, pale as ghosts. never to appear before me again. The in-laws couldn't find another wife to exploit, losing their farm and house, unable to pay off their debts. Now, living in a cramped apartment, working part-time at farms, with no savings and insufficient pension contributions. Poultry farmer Brown told me about their pitiful end. Serves them right, he said with a laugh. Brown is a kind person who has always cared for me. My ex-husband and his family were no good, but I believe I was blessed with the people around me. Though my marriage was tough, I was blessed with kind people around me. I once thought divorce meant the end for me and my kids, but it wasn't true. Living honestly and earnestly, there are people who notice and care. You can laugh at such terrible men, my friends say. Life isn't as bad as I thought. Welcome! I hung the Blue Norin at my little country sandwich shop, imagining the delightful smiles my sandwiches would bring.
A bit richer, I think. Huh? Your mother? I wondered why my mother-in-law's name suddenly came up, but as I listened to him, it seemed that he thought his mother's taste was the best and wanted me to get as close to that taste as possible. Overall, my mother-in-law's cooking seemed to be on the richer side, so for now, I decided to make the dishes richer as my husband requested, even when we went on trips. "What should I buy for my mom as a souvenir?" he would say. Although his father was also around, I thought it would be more normal to say, "What should we buy for our parents?" But my husband always started with, "For my mom." I think it's good to take care of one's mother and that there are quite a few mama boys out there. But I would later find out that my husband's attachment to his mother went beyond the normal range. "I think we should live with my mom." Wait, what? Why all of a sudden? It seems like my mom and dad are getting divorced. What? Really? Apparently, it's because of my dad's infidelity. Oh no. My father-in-law seems so kind, but I guess you can't judge a book by its cover. It's so sad to leave my mom alone, and if we live together, she can help take care of our daughter. That might be true. I'm on parental leave now, but if my mother-in-law supports us, I might be able to return to work sooner. But I was a little worried. Does my mother-in-law like me? Can we get along well if we live together? I talked to my husband about my honest feelings. Then my husband said, "Don't worry, it'll be fine. My mom was praising you, Jennifer." My mother-in-law had praised me. I was happy to hear that and thought we might be able to get along well living together. However, I quickly realized that my thinking was naive. My mother-in-law moved into the apartment we lived in and suddenly started treating me rudely. "I can't believe you get to live in such a nice apartment. It's annoying." Huh? Don't you ever forget that you have this life thanks to my son? I didn't understand why she was yelling at me. Well, but Matthew is working hard and helping out with chores, so I guess I'm grateful. Since my mother-in-law's claim wasn't entirely wrong, I quietly replied, "Yes, I'll keep that in mind." At least you're obedient. That's good. From then on, my mother-in-law would yell at me whenever something bothered her. "You're supposed to put sauce on fried eggs. Why is there soy sauce? The bath temperature is so lukewarm. Set it hotter, please. Why isn't there any ice cream after a bath? Make sure to replenish it." No, do it all yourself. Besides, the reasons for getting angry are too trivial. Despite being home all day, my mother-in-law barely does any housework. I'd hoped that she'd be more cooperative in taking care of our 1-year-old daughter, but she only does it when she feels like it and quickly loses interest. And after living together, I found out that my mother-in-law's overprotectiveness toward her son was even worse than Matthew's attachment to his mother. "Matthew, how was work today?" It was really tough. My boss was a bit on edge because we were so busy, so I had to be careful. Oh my, that's unforgivable. Should I protest against the company for allowing power harassment? Really? Over that? It's okay, Mom. We have to have a big heart and forgive. Oh, what a kind child you are, just like an angel. No, calling a man in his 30s an angel? Haha, thanks, Mom, but if I can't stand it anymore, I'll count on your help. Of course. No, that's too pitiful for the boss. To be protested for power harassment based on Matthew's mood? I immediately regretted living with my mother-in-law. I felt like I would go crazy if I stayed with her all the time. So I decided to put my daughter in daycare and return to work. Why do you have to work too? She got angry, but when I said, but you can spend your day alone at home, right? It seemed she felt there was some merit to it. Don't neglect your housework. She only said that and didn't get any angrier. Good grief, she's such a troublesome person. I never know what will set her off. After that, my stress was somewhat reduced as I started working and spent less time with my mother-in-law. But a problem arose about a year after we started living together. That day happened to be my daughter's second birthday. We prepared a cake, gifts, and held a birthday party for her as a family. But my daughter had entered the terrible twos a little while ago. It's safe to say that it was at its peak during the birthday party. Come on, here's a present, open it up. She handed my daughter the present while saying that. No, my daughter said, batting the present away. My mother-in-law was surprised, but she held back this time, thinking that if the present didn't work, maybe the cake would. She scooped up a bite with a fork and tried to feed my daughter. Here, it is your favorite shortcake. But yet again, my daughter said, no, and swatted the cake away with her hand. Then the cream flew and landed on my mother-in-law's forehead. The short-tempered mother-in-law flipped out at my 2-year-old daughter. Enough already, you're getting carried away because I'm being nice to you. My daughter started crying as she was suddenly yelled at. What are you doing? She's scared. I quickly hugged my daughter and protected her. Shut up, what an unlovable grandchild. Well, then you're an immature grandmother. What did you say? Normally, a grown-up wouldn't say such words to a 2-year-old. Shut up, you're such a cheeky daughter-in-law. Can't you fix that attitude of yours? As we argued, my husband joined in. Cut it out, don't insult my mom. Huh? You're siding with your mother in this situation? You should be protecting your daughter. We can have more kids, but I only have one mom in this world. You're the worst. What a trashy thing to say, as if it's a wise quote. Hey, don't talk bad about Matthew. Neither you nor my grandchild are cute. Get out of this house. Huh? This house is... I stopped myself from finishing that sentence. Understood. I started packing my things. My husband watched, flustered. Hey, you don't have to leave. But your precious mother told me to leave. I must obey, right? Matthew, don't bother with that woman. Come here and just eat cake with me. My mother-in-law had a smug look on her face. I vowed to break her nose, took my daughter, and went back to my parents' house. I ignored the several calls from my husband. I made preparations and sent him the divorce papers. He seemed to have filled them out as he sent them back. I submitted them to the city office right away. Then I called my ex-husband. I submitted the divorce papers, so thank you for filling them out. Yeah, so it's okay for me and my mom to keep living in this house, right? You guys left on your own. Sure, as long as you pay the rent. Ha! Of course. This is the apartment you rented, so when you left last time, I was worried. But if I think about it calmly, all I need to do is change the lease to my name, right? Thanks for providing a comfortable place for me and my mom. I'm glad it worked out. By the way, how much is the rent? Well, let's make it about 150,000 yen, shall we? What? What are you talking about? Tell me the actual rent. Don't mess around. I'm not joking. That's because I'm the owner of the place. What? We talked about it when we got married, remember? I made quite a bit of money in stocks a long time ago and bought that apartment. You must have assumed it was a rental on your own. Matthew falls silent, seemingly at a loss for words. If you can't afford the 150,000 yen rent, I'll just sell the place. That apartment will sell quickly. Wait. If you do that, where will my mom and I live? I don't care. You better leave quickly, or I'll report you to the management company. With that, she hangs up the phone, blocks her ex-husband's number, and later demands child support payments through a lawyer. According to the lawyer, her ex-husband looked gaunt and worn out. It must be tough for him, both mentally and financially, to have to pay child support, while also supporting his mother. Apparently, his mother accompanied him to the negotiations, and they spent the entire time blaming each other. It's your fault. Even the close relationship between mother and son, which had seemed so disgusting, crumbled in an instant when they lost their wealth and comfortable lifestyle. Perhaps their bond was superficial all along. In any case, it's not her problem anymore. On the other hand, Jennifer sold the apartment for a surprisingly high price, saved all the money for her daughter's upbringing, and now works hard while living with her parents. She wants to find love again someday, but for now, her top priority is to earn as much money as possible for her beloved daughter. She also vows to learn from her former mother-in-law's example and not become overly intrusive in her daughter's life. Thank you for watching until the end. If you liked it, please subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.
My name is Noelle. I'm a 40-year-old housewife. Today, I'd like to talk about my family. I have a husband who is the same age as me and a daughter who just turned 16 recently. I met my husband in college. We fell in love and got married. Nothing out of the ordinary. Unlike me, who has a rough personality, he is a very meticulous person. He had a peculiar obsession with how things were placed and was the kind of person who would not be satisfied until things were arranged to his liking. I felt some discomfort with him since we were dating. Yet, I had this feeling that marriage would change us for the better, but reality wasn't so sweet. After we got married, his meticulousness only increased. I had to adjust every aspect of my life to conform to his rules. No matter how tolerant I am, I can't accept all of his behaviors. Sometimes we would even end up in heated arguments. Every day passed in such a blur that there was not even a moment when I could rest. My daughter was born in the midst of such circumstances. My husband was delighted with our daughter, who came into our lives 2 years after our marriage. I thought this might bring some peace to our daily life. I was relieved, just by myself. However, my husband's attitude changed dramatically soon after. When a child is born, it's normal to adjust the rhythm of life to suit the child. Yet my husband didn't like that he couldn't keep his routine, and when our daughter squealed in the middle of the night, he would hurl strong words at her. Furthermore, he declared that he would not involve himself in child-rearing at all. I don't know how many times I have tried to divorce him because of his selfish attitude. Still, for the sake of our daughter, I gritted my teeth and endured. Every day, I fought desperately to protect my daughter, risking my own life. As if to mock my struggles, another tragedy was about to strike. And the cause was the very existence of the daughter I had fought so hard to protect. It's often said that children resemble their fathers, but I absolutely didn't want my precious daughter to resemble that man. Fortunately, her facial expressions were similar to mine. I thought everything would be okay. I believed so, but despite my wishes, as she grew up, her personality started to resemble my husband more and more. Around the age of 10, she started complaining about my cooking and became upset or threw tantrums when she didn't like the way things were placed or cleaned. Lately, with the onset of her rebellious phase, she even started to hurl harsh words at me. Of course, I didn't always let her have her way and often argued back. As if to break my heart, my husband sided with our daughter and started blaming me. When attacked by both of them, I couldn't fight back. Ultimately, my life became one where I was being constantly criticized, and then the day finally arrived. From the morning, I was feeling lethargic. I had a slight fever and was feeling dizzy. I was so unsteady that I couldn't walk straight in the house. I couldn't even stand and was stuck sitting on a chair. Despite seeing me in this state, neither my husband nor daughter said a single kind word. Instead, he barked at me. "Hey, where did you put my tie? The red one, the one I used 2 months ago." "Hey, did you wash my socks?" "Mom, where did you put them?" Thus, they were only thinking of themselves. It's just a tie, just socks. Why do they make such a big deal out of such trivial matters? Couldn't they pay attention to me just for today? Somehow in my hazy consciousness, I managed to see them off, and then I collapsed in the hallway. The next thing I saw was the familiar ceiling of the living room. I had been sleeping on the couch. It seems I had moved to the living room unconsciously. Although I was still feeling tired, thanks to a good rest, my condition had improved. I was awake, but there was a pleasant feeling as if part of my brain was still asleep. Being unwell was the cause, but I wonder when the last time I have slept so soundly. I gave up trying to escape from that comfort and went back to sleep. When I woke up next, it was already dark outside, and when I reflexively looked at the clock, it was past 5 in the evening. I felt the blood drain from my body all at once. I hadn't done most of the household chores, such as laundry and dinner preparation. I have to at least make dinner. I jumped up and headed to the kitchen. Since there was no time to go shopping, I managed to put together a menu using only leftovers. "I'm home." My daughter came home at the worst possible time while I was still scrambling. "Wait, you're still making dinner? That sucks." "I'm sorry, it'll be ready soon." Ignoring my apology, my daughter went into her room. Soon after, my husband came home from work. "What, you're still cooking dinner?" His words were filled with obvious discomfort. He has a meticulous routine after coming home, so he must have noticed something was different. After saying only that, my husband went into his room. He starts eating 15 minutes after he begins to change his clothes. That was also part of his routine. This means I only had 15 minutes left. I cooked desperately. Even if the cutting was rough, even if I messed up the seasoning, I couldn't stop cooking. If I didn't finish before my husband came out of his room, I wouldn't know what would happen. I managed to finish plating just before my husband came out of his room. I made it. I could feel the tension draining from my body. But then, what the hell? Who could eat this? That was my husband's outcry. "What's wrong?" "What's wrong, you say?" You have some nerve asking that. My husband was inexplicably worked up. I didn't understand the cause of his anger. "This stir-fry, you overcooked it. The color is off, and the vegetables aren't even uniformly cut." "I'm sorry, I was a bit pressed for time today." "Time? You're not working. You have plenty of time." I couldn't forgive that single sentence. As if I wasn't doing anything at all. Why do I have to be spoken down to by a husband who doesn't even notice my discomfort? I have no time at all. Before I knew it, I was screaming with all my might. Do you have any idea how much I struggle every day? In a rush of emotion, I found myself screaming. It seemed to be an unexpected reaction for my husband. I saw him take a step back, his eyes filled with a frightened look. "What struggle? House chores can be done at your own pace, isn't it easy?" he challenged. "What do you know? It's not like I can just do them at my own pace," I countered. By then, I couldn't stop myself. "I was feeling really sick today, you know. I pushed through and made dinner, and you didn't even take a bite. How do you think that makes me feel?" I felt tears trickling down my cheeks. The emotions I had been holding back had finally exploded. Seeing my husband's face turn pale, I managed to calm down a bit. I was short of breath. My breathing was disrupted and I felt dizzy from all the shouting. But still, I waited for my husband's response. A simple apology, a single "I'm sorry" would have been enough. "Don't mess with me." That tiny spark of hope was extinguished by his trembling words. "Do you have any idea how much I struggle in the world to support our family? So you're saying I'm just living easy and free?" I'm saying your job is to support me so I can focus on my work. That's just an excuse. I'm not your slave. Don't talk back to me. Just a little more and my husband would have raised his hand at me. I knew it instinctively, but I couldn't back down now. As I prepared to confront him with my next words, it happened. What on earth are you doing? Our daughter burst out of her room. Your voices can be heard outside. Stop it. It's embarrassing. Don't stop me. It's her talking nonsense that's the problem. It's you being selfish. Just be quiet. My daughter's reprimand made us stop arguing. Then I explained to her what had happened. After hearing both me and my husband's sides, my daughter turned to me and said, "Honestly, Mom, you're the one who's wrong." Her words shocked me to the core. Why? Because housework is your job, isn't it? Dad can't afford to take time off work, even when he's not feeling well. That's right, you're too lenient on yourself. My husband's face as he spoke after my daughter filled me with resentment. Mom is always late with her chores. Even today, you haven't done the laundry yet. That's right, and you're not efficient. You can't even fold the laundry properly. Their words shattered my emotions into pieces. So you're both saying I'm not trying hard enough? Maybe you're not trying hard enough. I could probably do it better and faster. Yeah, you're too laid back. I bet we could manage without you, Mom. My daughter's words cut deeper than anything else. So was I the dispensable person? I thought we were a family, but could they dismiss me so easily? Having been confronted with this cruel reality, I found myself running out of the house. Before I knew it, I was in a pitch-dark park with no streetlights. My feet hurt. Sitting on a park bench, I realized that I had run out without even putting on my shoes. My tears had long since dried up, and my mind was blank. How long had I been sitting like this? Even if I stopped thinking, the harsh words would never disappear. My heart wouldn't heal. Recalling the words of my husband and daughter, I could feel my broken heart filling with resentment. I will never forgive them. They, my family who trampled on my feelings, must face punishment. My fighting spirit was quietly burning. The next morning, I flawlessly finished the cleaning and laundry. And for breakfast, I prepared a menu as extravagant as a dinner at a famous restaurant. By the time I finished preparations, my husband and daughter arrived in the living room almost simultaneously. Without making eye contact with me, they both took their seats. Come on, let's have breakfast. Upon my words, their faces seemed to stiffen even more. Mom, what's going on? Today's breakfast is really fancy. Instead of my frozen husband, my daughter asked me. Well, isn't it your 16th birthday today? Did you forget? Huh? Yeah, I did forget. You should at least remember your own birthday. Right, Dad? Huh? Yeah. After exchanging curt conversation, the two started breakfast with awkward movements. The dining table was not filled with cheerful conversations, and it was clear that both were fully observing my behavior. Was it because they were unaware that they had hurt someone, or just didn't want to admit it? It's understandable with my husband. After all, he's a stranger. But my daughter, she's the one I gave birth to and raised. I wished she would grow up to be a more considerate, kind person. It's not entirely wrong to say that daughters resemble their fathers, but she should have been able to understand with proper upbringing. I do have regrets, but it's a moot point now. Listen, just one word from me changed their expressions. What's going on? My husband's voice shook as he asked back. Starting today, I'm leaving this house. At that moment, they both paled simultaneously. Hold on. Why? Why? You said you could do the housework better than me. I didn't say anything like that. Yes, you did. I'm sure you said it. I have never cut off my daughter's words so strongly until now. Whether she was shaken by my attitude or not, she didn't argue further. Next was my husband's turn. You also said it. You said I have more free time than you because I'm at home. I didn't mean it like that. Does such an excuse work in the real world? He didn't answer. Don't misunderstand, I'm moving to another house starting today, but it doesn't mean I won't come to this house. Stop! Today's my birthday, right? You're going to celebrate, right? My daughter pleaded with a face that seemed about to cry. I looked at her face and laughed. I'm sorry, I'm serious about this. As I watched my daughter crumble on the spot, I quietly stood up. Well, I'm off. I left the house to the sound of my husband and daughter's screams. That day, I booked a room in a hotel a short distance from the house. From there, I rented an apartment on a monthly basis and started buying the necessary items. Even while I was busy, my phone was flooded with messages from the two. Apology messages and calls from my daughter were coming in every 5 minutes. My husband, it seems, is still unable to admit his fault. I keep receiving messages from him saying things like, "What you did was outrageous." I've left all the messages from the two of them unread. It's really convenient these days being able to show my intentions without doing anything. 2 nights after leaving the house, I returned home once. As I opened the front door, my daughter came running up to me at an amazing speed. "Mom, you came back!" I just came back to pick up something I forgot. I untangled myself from my daughter's arms, which were wrapped around me like a hug, and headed for the living room. Since I had only been gone for 2 days, there was no change in the living room as expected. However, the kitchen was piled high with convenience store lunchboxes, ramen cups, and bottles. Worse than that was the bathroom. Laundry had been left unwashed there. Both my husband and daughter often complain about the way I cook and fold the laundry. However, neither of them can do household chores like cooking and laundry at all. Of course, knowing that, I left home, so the current disaster is within my expectations. My husband was in the living room, but due to his pride, he turned his face away after just a glance at me. I pulled away from a sobbing daughter and left the house silently that day. 1 week later, when I returned home to check on them, the house was already filled with garbage. These two who never clean up or even take out the trash. Even so, the mess was far beyond my expectations. Mom! My daughter's face, which emerged as if pushing through the garbage, was horribly dirty and her hair was disheveled. She should be able to take a bath by herself, but it was clear that her life was falling apart at an unsustainable level. And at this point, my husband finally admitted his fault. I was wrong. I'm really sorry. My husband kneeling on the garbage, rubbing his forehead against the garbage. Looking at him, I gently said, "Don't think you're going to be forgiven just by prostrating yourself." I felt a moment when the air froze for the first time. My husband's face, with his eyes wide open, was filled with despair. Next to me, my daughter was breaking down in tears. "If you really feel sorry, first clean up this house. If you can't do that, I'll divorce you." I get it, so please, forgive me." My husband jumped up and started to stir the trash around. He doesn't even know how to clean up in the first place, so it can't be helped. In the end, I proceeded with the cleaning while giving instructions to the two of them. It wasn't until 3 days later that everything was perfectly cleaned up. Now, shall we continue the birthday party? My husband and daughter lying in the living room, which is now cleaner than before. Looking down at the two of them, I deliberately said that cheerfully. From then on, all the housework was taken over by my husband. Even my daughter, who used to side with her father, is now on my side. Those days were very hard and painful, but now I realize that it was necessary.
I'm Lila. My life was straightforward, just work and home. I worked as a web designer, and my days were filled with coding, designing, and client meetings, all from the comfort of my home. I was good at what I did, and it showed in my bank balance. It wasn't always like this. A year ago, my life was a mess after a horrible breakup. I had sworn off relationships, focusing only on work. But then, I met Ethan at a friend's party. Ethan came up to me with a simple, "Hi, I'm Ethan. You're Lila, right?" His voice was calm and steady, no airs, no pretense. "Yes, that's me," I replied, taking in his casual attire and easygoing smile. We talked about everything that evening, from movies to our hobbies. He mentioned he worked in sales and seemed to enjoy his job. "You must love what you do," he commented after I explained my work. "I do," I smiled. "It's more than just a job for me." He nodded, and we continued chatting for what felt like hours. By the end of the evening, we had exchanged numbers. It wasn't long before our casual chats turned into dates, and our dates turned into serious discussions about our future together. Ethan was different from the men I'd known. He was kind, attentive, and seemed genuinely interested in my life. I remember our third date distinctly. We were sitting in a small cafe, and he handed me a bouquet of flowers. "For you," he said simply. "Oh, Ethan, they're lovely," I replied, taken aback by the gesture. "I thought they'd make you smile," he grinned. We dated for a few months, and everything felt perfect. So when Ethan proposed, I didn't hesitate. We had a simple wedding and moved in together. My house, spacious and filled with the memories of my single life, now echoed with our shared laughter. However, things took a turn when Ethan came home one day looking distressed. "I lost my job, Lila," he began, avoiding my gaze. I was stunned, but tried to be understanding. "It's okay, Ethan. We'll manage. You'll find another job soon." He looked relieved. "Thank you for understanding. I promise I'll make this right." I believed him. Truly I did. But as days turned into weeks and weeks into months, with Ethan not working and his job interviews leading nowhere, my patience began to wear thin. As the days went by, my trust in Ethan waned, replaced by an unsettling anxiety. Our financial situation was still stable thanks to my job, but Ethan's attitude towards employment became increasingly lackadaisical. One evening, I overheard him talking on the phone. "Yes, Mom, I'm taking care of everything. Lila's just doing her little web designing thing, but I'm handling the big stuff." That conversation irked me. Was he implying that he was the primary earner? A week later, his sister Elsie dropped by for a visit. She and I never really got along. Our beliefs and lifestyles were polar opposites. She had chosen a life completely centered around her home and husband, a choice I respected but couldn't understand. The moment she walked in, she started inspecting the place. "Lila, don't you ever dust around here?" she commented, running her finger along a shelf. "We've both been busy, Elsie," I said, trying to remain calm. She smirked. "Well, maybe if you focused less on work and more on your home." "Elsie, Lila's doing a lot, okay? You don't need to come here and criticize." Ethan quickly interjected, trying to mediate. Elsie raised an eyebrow. "Oh, I know you're taking care of everything, Ethan. I just feel bad you married someone who can't even keep a house tidy." I was fuming. "Elsie, it's not just my job to keep the house clean. Ethan lives here too." Ethan glanced at me, then at his sister, a silent plea in his eyes. "Let's not discuss this here," he said softly. Elsie smirked. Of course, wouldn't want to make things uncomfortable. But remember, Ethan, a man's role is to provide. I was left seething as Elsie sauntered out, leaving a trail of tension in her wake. Later that evening, I tried talking to Ethan. "Why does Elsie think you're the main provider? Why is she under the impression that I'm just sitting around doing nothing?" Ethan looked uncomfortable. "Look, Lila, I might have mentioned to her that I'm handling a lot of things. I didn't want her or Mom thinking less of me because I'm not working." "That doesn't give you the right to belittle my contribution, Ethan. We're supposed to be a team," I replied, frustration evident in my voice. Ethan sighed. "I'm sorry, Lila. I'll clear things up with Elsie and Mom. Please give me some time." The days that followed were full of tension. Every morning, as I settled into my home office, the same nagging thought kept bothering me. Was Ethan being truthful, How much more was he keeping from me? It was one evening, as I sat down to pay some bills, that I noticed something off. A hefty amount had been transferred monthly from our joint account to an unfamiliar one. Curiosity piqued, I decided to dig deeper. I approached Ethan as he lounged on the couch. "Hey, I noticed some transfers from our account. Do you know anything about it?" Ethan looked up, startled. "Oh, yeah, that's just some money I've been sending to Mom to help her out." I raised an eyebrow. "Help her out? With what? And why didn't you tell me?" He hesitated. "Well, she has some expenses, and since I'm not working, I thought I'd support her with our savings." I was taken aback. "Ethan, that's our money. We should be discussing these things together. It's a considerable amount." Ethan looked away. "I didn't think it was a big deal, Lila. She's family." Frustration bubbled up. "But so am I. Why didn't you talk to me about this?" I didn't want you to worry," he muttered. My voice began to tremble with anger. "Ethan, keeping secrets, especially about money, isn't right. We made a commitment to each other. This isn't how it's supposed to work." He sighed. "I know, Lila. I didn't want to feel useless. I wanted to at least do something for my family since I can't for ours right now." I looked at him, tears in my eyes. "But you are doing something. You're sharing your life with me. We need trust and transparency. Without that, what do we have?" Ethan lowered his gaze. "I'm sorry, Lila. I messed up." I took a deep breath. "We need to fix this, Ethan, starting with being honest about everything." He nodded, looking genuinely remorseful. "I promise, no more secrets." But as the night wore on and I lay in bed, I couldn't shake off the feeling of betrayal. In the wake of our last conversation, things felt even more strained between Ethan and me. Though he promised transparency, my own curiosity led me on a path to uncover the depth of his deception. One evening, as Ethan went out under the guise of another job seminar, I decided to do a little detective work. Going through our financial statements, I traced back every transaction to his mother's account. The sums were large, far more than one would need for general assistance. I picked up my phone and called my friend Jane, who worked at a bank. "Hey, Jane, I need a favor," I began, hesitating. "Can you help me look into an account? I think something's off." There was a pause on the other line before Jane replied, "Lila, you know that's not exactly legal." "I know, but I'm desperate," I admitted. "I promise. I won't get you in trouble." After hearing my story, Jane hesitated for a moment and then said, "Okay, send me the account number. I'll see what I can do." A day later, she called me back with information that confirmed my suspicions. "Lila," Jane began, her voice low, "the money Ethan's sending to his mother? It's not just sitting there. It's being funneled into an investment account, and the amounts are substantial." My heart sank. "Investment account?" "Yes, and the worst part is, it's under both his mother's and his name." I was speechless. Not only was he giving away our savings, but he was also making investments without informing me. "Jane, thank you," I managed, my voice breaking. "I'm so sorry, Lila," she replied. I sat in our living room, the weight of betrayal pressing down on me. How could he? When Ethan returned later that evening, I confronted him, papers scattered all over our coffee table. "Ethan, we need to talk." He took one look at the bank statements and paled. "Lila?" "Why, Ethan, why did you lie to me?" I demanded. Ethan swallowed hard. Mom convinced me it was a good investment. She said we'd double our money in no time. I thought I was doing it for us." "But it's our money, Ethan," I exclaimed. "You can't make decisions like this on your own. We're supposed to be partners." He sat down, defeated. "I know. I messed up. I thought I could surprise you, show you I was contributing." I shook my head, tears streaming down my face. By lying? By betraying my trust? Ethan looked away, guilt evident in his eyes. "I'm sorry, Lila. I should have talked to you." The truth was out, but the damage was done. Could our relationship withstand the strain of so many lies? The atmosphere in the house was as cold and quiet as a winter morning. After uncovering Ethan's deceit, I was determined to keep my composure, but I found myself rattled whenever I remembered the mistruths. Ethan, on the other hand, seemed to be avoiding the topic entirely. Just as I sat down at my computer, the front door burst open. Before I could react, Lydia, Ethan's mother, and Elsie stormed into the living room. "You shameless woman!" Lydia's voice cut through the air. "All you do is sit on your behind and suck the life out of my son." Elsie chimed in with a smirk. "Always knew you were a leech, just waiting to latch on to someone better off." I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts before replying. "I'm the one working and earning here. Ethan hasn't been for months." Ethan stood off to the side, his eyes darting between us. I hoped, expected, that he would say something, defend me. But he remained silent. Lydia, her face red with rage, took a step forward. "You expect us to believe that? My son has been the one supporting this family. You've just been enjoying his hard work." Elsie nodded in agreement. "Honestly, I don't know what he saw in you. You're just a lazy housewife, living off someone else's money." Their words were like salt on an open wound. But more painful than their false accusations was Ethan's silence. He just stood there, watching the scene unfold without uttering a word in my defense. Taking a deep breath, I stood tall and looked straight into Lydia's eyes. "All I ask is for the money Ethan transferred to you, returned. It's rightfully ours, not just his." Lydia's face twisted in rage. "How dare you? That's my son's money, and I'll decide what to do with it." Despite the fury in her eyes, I didn't waver. "It's our money, Lydia. Earned by me, not him." She stared at me for a moment, the room silent except for our heavy breathing. Then, with a huff, she turned on her heel, Elsie following close behind. "This isn't over!" Lydia spat as she stormed out of the house. The door slammed shut behind them, leaving a lingering echo. I turned to Ethan, waiting for him to say something, anything. But he just looked down, avoiding my gaze. The gravity of the situation weighed heavily on me. Not only was there deceit about money, but I was also fighting a battle with his family on my own. His silence hurt more than any deceit ever could. A few days after the confrontation, I sat in my home office, distracted by everything that had occurred. The tranquility of my workspace, usually a haven for creativity, now felt stifling. Taking a sip from my coffee, I pondered on how to reclaim my dignity and pride. The first step was clear. I accessed my online bank, scrutinizing every transaction, noting down each suspicious transfer. The amount Ethan had funneled to his mother was staggering. Money I had earned with sweat and sleepless nights, taken without my knowledge. A message pinged on my computer. It was from Lucy, a friend since college, and also a brilliant lawyer. I had confided in her about the whole situation, and she was eager to help. "Hey, I've looked into your situation. Let's meet for lunch?" her message read. We met at a quiet bistro, away from prying eyes. "So," Lucy began, stirring her iced tea, "I've been doing some digging, and I think we have a solid case here. It's about time we put Ethan and his family in their place." I nodded, taking a deep breath. "I just want what's rightfully mine, Lucy. I can't let them get away with this." Lucy's eyes gleamed with determination. "Trust me, they won't." Weeks turned into a whirlwind of paperwork, meetings, and strategy sessions. Lucy and I, along with a team she'd put together, found evidence not only of Ethan's deceit, but also questionable transactions involving Lydia's accounts. It was a spiderweb of lies and deceit, with Ethan and Lydia at its center. One evening, after another exhaustive session, Lucy looked at me and said, "It's time. Let's serve them the papers." The next morning, Lucy and I drove to Lydia's place. Ethan's car was parked outside. Perfect. We rang the bell, and Elsie answered, her face a mask of fake surprise. "Oh, it's you," she sneered. "We're not here for games," I said coldly. "Is Ethan here?" Before Elsie could reply, Ethan emerged from the living room. His confident smirk vanished as Lucy handed him an envelope. "You're being sued," she said crisply. "For fraud and theft. I'd advise you to get a lawyer." His face paled. "This is ridiculous," he exclaimed. "No, what's ridiculous is you stealing from your wife and lying about it," I retorted. Lydia appeared at the door, her eyes scanning the scene. "What's going on here?" "You might want to read this too," Lucy said, handing her another envelope. As Lydia read the documents, her face went from smug to horrified. "You can't do this." I stood tall, all the pain and humiliation fueling my resolve. "I can, and I am. See you in court." Walking away from that house, with Lucy by my side, I felt a weight lifted. It wasn't about revenge. It was about justice. It was about standing up for myself when others tried to push me down. It was about reclaiming my power. And it was served cold. As the days drew closer to our court date, I braced myself for the inevitable backlash. I knew Lydia and Ethan wouldn't go down without a fight. And while I was emotionally ready, I didn't expect them to bring the battle right to my doorstep. It was a chilly evening when my doorbell rang. Peering through the peephole, I saw them, Lydia, Elsie, and Ethan, their faces a cocktail of anger and determination. Taking a deep breath, I opened the door. "Thought you'd ambush us with that lawsuit, did you?" Lydia spat out, taking a step inside. Ethan and Elsie trailed behind her, blocking the exit. "Calm down, Lydia. This isn't a good look for you," I replied evenly. "You think you can just humiliate us in public? Drag our name through the mud?" Elsie snapped, her voice dripping with contempt. "It's simple," I replied coolly. "Return the money, and this ends." Ethan, who had been silent till now, looked at me with a mix of frustration and sadness. "Is this how you want things to end? By suing your own family?" "Family?" I echoed, my voice icy. "A family doesn't steal from each other. A family doesn't lie and degrade one another." He sighed. "I made a mistake, but taking us to court? That's extreme." "It's justice," I responded, "and I'm not dropping the case." Lydia, crimson with rage, glared at me. "We won't let you tarnish our reputation. You're going to regret this." "Is that a threat?" I countered. "Everything I've done is legal. Can you say the same?" "Enough!" Ethan shouted. "This is getting us nowhere." I fixed him with a steely gaze. "You're right. It's clear where we all stand. Now, I suggest you leave." Elsie sneered. "You may have gotten the upper hand now, but remember, the courts haven't decided anything yet." "We'll see," I replied confidently. As they left, the tension in the room was palpable, but I stood my ground. They had come to intimidate, to make me doubt my course, but it had the opposite effect. Their visit only solidified my decision. There was no turning back now, and whatever the outcome, I was ready. The day of the court hearing arrived quicker than I anticipated. As I entered the building, my heels clicked sharply against the marble floor, echoing the resolute beat of my heart. There was a thrum of anticipation in the air, and I could feel eyes on me, but I remained focused, my gaze unwavering. Sitting across the room, Lydia, Elsie, and Ethan whispered among themselves, casting furtive glances in my direction. Ethan looked especially worn out, his earlier confidence replaced by clear anxiety. Lydia, on the other hand, wore a mask of defiance, while Elsie's face was set in a frown, her eyes hard and calculating. The room fell silent as the judge entered, taking her place at the bench. "We are gathered here today to discuss the matter of financial fraud and theft," she began. "Present your case." My lawyer stepped forward, presenting the evidence of the unauthorized transfers and Ethan's deception. The paper trail was undeniable, every detail meticulously recorded. The judge frequently glanced up from the documents, looking first at Ethan and then at me. Ethan's lawyer made a valiant attempt to argue that the money was gifted willingly, but the evidence against them was insurmountable. When Lydia was called to the stand, her arrogance was palpable. "That money was for my son," she declared. "It was only right that he should have it." "But it wasn't yours to take," I replied calmly when it was my turn to speak. "And it wasn't yours to keep," Lydia snapped, pointing a shaking finger at me. The judge interjected. "This isn't about family dynamics. This is about the law, and the law is clear on this matter." Hours seemed to stretch on as the proceedings continued. When the final verdict was read, vindication surged through me. Ethan was ordered to return every cent he had taken, and additional punitive damages were awarded to me for the deceit and emotional trauma. After the hearing, As I stepped out into the crisp air, I felt lighter than I had in months. This was more than just a legal victory. It was my emancipation from the shackles of deception, disrespect, and manipulation. Ethan approached, his face pale. "I'm sorry," he murmured, not meeting my eyes. I looked at him, really looked at him, and for a moment I saw the man I had fallen in love with. But that image was quickly replaced by the reality of who he had become. "It's too late for sorry," I replied. As I walked away, I felt a sense of finality. It was the end of a painful chapter in my life, but it was also the beginning of a new one where I was in control, where I was free. That evening, as I sat in my home, the silence was soothing. There were no more whispers, no more deceit, no more games. I had reclaimed my life, my dignity, and my peace. And as the sun set, casting a warm golden hue across the room, I knew that tomorrow would be a new day, full of promise and endless possibilities.